Yeah, and also think that like looking at and the beauty of Tolkien and like high literature and good literature in general is it's not them telling a story. And I think this is one of the things that Tolkien captures so well. It's also his exploration, his own personal exploration of various different themes. So a lot of people who have tried to kind of compare his works to kind of allegorical works, even though like Tolkien vehemently despised and hated allegory. Actually, some of his conversations with Lewis was actually where he was in those inkling circles and then that little small group of guys that were meeting at the local, I think it was a pub. But he would actually go after Lewis for writing poor...
Bird and Baby is what they called the pub, but that was the actual name. But
he would go after Lewis because he criticized Lewis quite frequently on the Chronicles of Narnia for being allegorical and being pure allegory because he hated allegory. He despised it. But in the same sense, like you have like these allegorical themes or these motifs that go through the Lord of the Rings, where a lot of people have obviously looked into that and like, well, what's the inspiration for this? Like, what was it? I think it's really important when you're looking at like Tolkien's work to recognize this was also it was kind of his own fictional writings, but it was also his own way of kind of grappling with ideas. And grappling and working through ideas and working through his various different issues. I think that like every filmmaker or modern day, but also writers, like part of like the writing process and the creative process is kind of this own process of working through your own issues, as well as like the deeper questions that you yourself are pondering. One of the great things that I see is and I just got recently really interesting book, which is on the Encyclopedia of Tolkien's, of the things that actually influenced him. It's a new one by, I believe his name is Howard Day. But when you look at that, actually, the influence of Germanic and like the Germanic mythology, Viking mythology, and which I thought was really fascinating because it's at the same time that he's writing, or just right after the time of this influx of Germanic philosophy and this influx of pagan Germanic philosophy, like during the time of World War II. It's like World War II, you had Hitler, who was trying to revitalize this Germanic paganism, Germanic atheistic paganism that was going on at the same time. And so like you do have actually within that period of time, a lot of Germophobia, the phobia of Germans, whatever that's called. But like this hatred of Germans and this hatred of like anything Germanic, especially in connection to Hitler and all this stuff that Hitler had done. At the same time, you'll find a person like Tolkien, highly influenced by Anglo-Saxon, was a professor at Oxford in linguistics and was highly influenced by Anglo-Saxon literature, as he was obviously hearing all the conversations, especially at the high academic circles, of this critique of anything German and this hatred of oftentimes things, as well as you see Hitler, who's trying to popularize this German cult. And then you find Lewis and you find Tolkien, who are writing at the same time. Tolkien, who then uses all these same influences, but uses them in the exact opposite way which Hitler was doing.
Yeah.
Because that's where you'll find like a lot of his, and as a much more beautiful multicultural understanding of the world as well as people. So for instance, like you look at like the Fellowship of the Ring, where you have, as opposed to a white nationalistic fellowship, you have a multicultural fellowship.
Yeah. And again, he's not doing a straight analogy or something like that.
That's the whole thing. The elves are not one thing. The dwarves are not one thing, but that's the whole point. The elves and the dwarves both have long ethnic histories of hostility towards each other, right?
Right.
But then yet they're working together at the same time on the Fellowship of the Ring. You have two kind of parallel ideas of masculinity with Aragorn and Boromir. You have like the old king versus like the up and coming one, but then you have the hobbits who kind of like are like children. Right. But then you have this all the different ways in which the Fellowship of the Rings, but behind all this is a huge influence, like one of probably the largest influence that Tolkien had, was this taking and trying to create a mythology for England, but using it predominantly and pulling out these beautiful themes that he saw in Anglo-Saxon culture and that were being demonized and were being destroyed, and basically pulling on all these different themes from Nordic mythologies, from Germanic mythologies and things like that, and showing how these things, although they have pagan roots, there still is a lot of goodness in them.